Dylan was the kind of man who always drew attention wherever he went. Tall, athletic, with a captivating smile and piercing green eyes, he was used to being the center of attention. He worked at a large architecture firm where his professional competence was as admired as his appearance. On a Friday after work, Dylan and some colleagues decided to go to a nearby bar to relax. The atmosphere was lively, with live music and many people chatting cheerfully. Seated at a corner table, the friends drank and laughed, sharing stories about work and personal life. It was then that the conversation took a different turn. "Dylan, man, do you realize the effect you have on women?" asked Tom, one of the colleagues between sips of beer. "It's amazing how they all seem to fall at your feet." Dylan smiled, running his hand through his well-groomed hair. "What can I say? I have a natural talent," he replied with an air of superiority. "A talent? Seriously?" mocked Mike, another colleague. "I bet you couldn't win over any woman you wanted." Dylan's eyes sparkled with the challenge. "Oh, really? Want to bet? Choose any woman here in the bar and I guarantee that in a few minutes she'll be interested in me." The friends exchanged glances, laughing at Dylan's arrogance. Then one of the friends in the group had an idea. "Wait a minute, guys. Winning someone over in a bar is too easy for our charmer here. How about a real challenge?" Everyone was curious, including Dylan, who raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Remember Judith, the girl who works in the company's human resources department? I bet you can't make her fall in love with you in a week." The group was silent for a moment, absorbing the proposal. Dylan frowned, trying to remember who Judith was. He had a vague memory of a discreet girl he sometimes saw in the company's hallways, but he had never paid much attention to her. "A week? Pff, piece of cake," said Dylan, puffing out his chest. "I accept the challenge. In a week, Judith will be completely in love with me." The friends laughed and toasted to the new bet, little knowing that this challenge would completely change Dylan's life. On the following Monday, Dylan arrived at the office determined to begin his pursuit. His eyes scanned the environment until they found Judith's desk. He observed her for a moment, noticing for the first time what she was like. Judith possessed a gentle and natural beauty, with long hair that fell delicately over her shoulders. Her honey-coloured eyes were focused on the computer screen as she worked. Judith's desk was a reflection of her personality, organised and decorated with small personal touches. Miniature dog figurines and other cute ornaments adorned the space, creating a welcoming environment amidst the corporate setting. Dylan adjusted his tie, ran a hand through his hair, and walked confidently towards Judith's desk. He stopped in front of her, waiting to be noticed, but to his surprise, Judith remained focused on her work. Disconcerted, he cleared his throat slightly. Judith finally looked up, her expression neutral. "Hi, how can I help you? Do you need something?" she asked, her voice calm and professional. Dylan, not accustomed to being ignored, tried to regain his composure. "Actually, Judith, I came here to see if you would like to have lunch with me today. A new restaurant has opened near the office and I thought we could check it out together." Judith looked at him for a moment, as if evaluating him. "Thank you very much for the invitation, but I'm going to have lunch with my colleagues. Enjoy your lunch," she replied politely, turning her attention back to the computer. Dylan was momentarily paralyzed, surprised by the rejection. He had never been dismissed so directly and politely. Feeling the amused gazes of colleagues who knew about the bet, he walked away, intrigued and determined not to give up. In the days that followed, Dylan intensified his attempts to get closer, determined to win Judith over at any cost. He strutted around the office with his almost arrogant confidence, flashing smiles that seemed rehearsed, always full of ulterior motives. His approaches were carefully calculated. Casual compliments on her appearance, jokes that elicited laughter from everyone around, and occasionally, a bolder comment suggesting something beyond friendship. Despite his efforts, Judith seemed unwavering. While many women would have succumbed to Dylan's insistent charm, she maintained a serene expression and an educated but professional tone. Each of his attempts was met with short and cordial responses, as if she was making it clear that she wasn't easily impressed. For Dylan, who rarely faced resistance, this indifference was a blow to his ego. Dylan began to observe Judith more attentively, intrigued by her calm and resilience. She possessed a natural serenity that seemed to affect everyone around her. At work, Judith was known for her kindness and ability to handle challenging situations, always with an empathetic and professional demeanor. During lunches, she was at the center of lively conversations, surrounded by colleagues who clearly appreciated her company. Judith had a subtle charisma that didn't rely on ostentatious gestures, but on her authenticity and genuine attention to people. It was evident that what attracted others to her was not just her delicate beauty, but the essence of her personality, genuine, welcoming, and full of grace. One day, Dylan attended a lecture by Judith on new procedures in the Human Resources Department. To his surprise, he found himself completely engaged by the presentation. Judith spoke with clarity and passion about her work, turning a potentially monotonous subject into something interesting. Dylan realized he was paying more attention to how she expressed herself, to her gentle gestures and kind smile, than to the content of the lecture. As the days went by, Dylan found himself thinking about Judith at unexpected moments. While having coffee in the morning or reviewing projects in the office, her image would pop into his mind. He tried to justify these thoughts as mere curiosity or stubbornness in the face of her resistance, but there was more to it. It wasn't just the challenge of the bet that kept him intrigued, it was her way. The way she politely smiled at everyone, even in the tensest situations, or how her soft laughter enlivened trivial conversations with colleagues. Dylan began noticing small details that had previously escaped him. The way Judith tucked a strand of hair behind her ear while intently reading a document, or how her voice gained enthusiasm when speaking about something she truly loved. He was mesmerized watching her pass by, carrying an air of serenity and confidence that contrasted with the hustle around her. It was unlike anything he had ever felt, but he didn't fully understand what it meant. Sometimes he noticed a strange anxiety when he saw her talking to other colleagues, and it wasn't exactly jealousy. It was the feeling that they saw something in Judith that he was only beginning to discover. This feeling confused and intrigued him. It was as if, little by little, the center of his life was changing, and he didn't even realize that this center now revolved around Judith. The deadline for the bet had ended, and Dylan hadn't even managed to get a date with Judith. Despite all his initial efforts and various attempts, she remained steadfast in her stance, polite but unwavering. "So our great conqueror has been defeated," joked Tom, raising his glass in a mocking toast. "I guess you've lost your charm, Dylan. Since you lost the bet, today's drinks are on you." The comment sparked a wave of laughter around the table, but Dylan just smiled, without the usual confidence that always accompanied him. He called the waiter and paid for the round, his mind miles away. He left early that night, leaving his friends still laughing and toasting, while he drove home lost in thought, feeling strange and vulnerable like never before. What was it about her that made her so special? Why couldn't he get her out of his mind? The next day, Dylan arrived at work determined to change his approach. He knew he wanted to truly get to know Judith. Instead of trying to impress her, he began to observe her more closely, trying to understand her interests and personality. That afternoon, as he left work, Dylan found Judith in the parking lot, looking frustrated next to her car. He approached her, genuinely concerned. "Car trouble, Judith? Can I help?" She looked at him, surprised by the sincere offer. "My car won't start. Normally I would call my dad, but today is his birthday and I don't want to bother him. I'm already late for the little party they're throwing for him." Dylan saw an opportunity to help without any ulterior motives. "How about we leave your car here in the company parking lot? You can sort it out tomorrow at your own pace. I can give you a ride to your dad's party so you won't be any later." Judith hesitated for a moment but ended up accepting the offer. During the journey, Dylan felt nervous, not knowing exactly what to say. Judith was giving directions, and at a certain point they passed by a park that Dylan recognized. "I used to come here when I was a child," he commented nostalgically. My father would bring me on the weekends I spent with him after my parents separated. Judith smiled softly. My father brought me here a lot too. I have great memories of this place. Dylan spent his childhood in a home marked by constant arguments and tensions between his parents. The family environment was charged with negative emotions, where the fights were so frequent that they became part of the routine. He still remembered the nights he hid in his room, hearing the shouts echoing through the house while he tried to muffle the sound with a pillow. His parents' separation, which happened when he was only 8 years old, was inevitable and left a deep mark on his worldview. Even after the separation, Dylan continued in the middle of a crossfire between his parents. He always heard his father speaking ill of his mother. He never learned how a healthy relationship worked. Dylan began to associate relationships with pain and instability, believing that deeper emotional bonds were doomed to failure. When they arrived at Judith's parents' house, she invited him to come in, even if it was just to have a glass of water before leaving. Dylan accepted. Judith's father greeted her with a warm hug, affectionately calling her princess. She introduced Dylan as a colleague from work and explained the car situation. Her father insisted that Dylan stay for the party, thanking him for helping his daughter. During the party, Dylan closely observed how Judith interacted with her family. The atmosphere was warm and full of love. Judith's father was especially attentive, not only to her, but to everyone present. Dylan found himself drawn into that family atmosphere he had never experienced in his own home. At one point during the night, Judith's father approached Dylan. "You look at her in a special way. Do you have feelings for my daughter?" Dylan, caught by surprise, admitted that he had never felt this way about anyone before, but that Judith didn't seem interested in him. Judith's father smiled understandingly. "Dylan, Judith was raised in a home where respect and love have always been unwavering pillars. Since she was little, she saw the example of mutual care and kindness in every gesture between her mother and me. We made a point of teaching her that a person's value is not in what they possess, but in who they are. Judith grew up hearing that she deserved to be treated as someone special, with dignity and consideration, and never as just another person. I taught her to recognize when someone has good intentions and to protect her heart from people who only seek superficial things. That's why she is not impressed by appearances or empty gestures. If you truly care about her, Dylan, you'll need to show that you understand what true respect is and that you are willing to be someone who measures up to the incredible woman she is." These words reached Dylan deeply. He reflected on his own upbringing, on the constant fights he witnessed between his parents, and how this affected his view on relationships. For the first time, he realized that he needed to change not just for Judith, but for himself. In the days that followed, Dylan adopted a new approach. He began to take a genuine interest in the things Judith liked, asked about her weekend, and made small gestures of friendship without expecting anything in return. He discovered that Judith was passionate about classic literature and started reading some of her favorite books to have things to talk about. Gradually, Judith began to lower her defenses. She noticed the change in Dylan and appreciated his sincere efforts. They started having lunch together occasionally, sharing stories and laughs. Dylan was surprised to discover how much he enjoyed simply talking to her without pressure or expectations. As the months went by, the friendship between them blossomed. Dylan found himself eager to see Judith every day, not because of a bet or achievement, but because he genuinely enjoyed her company. He had never felt so comfortable and happy with someone. Finally, after months of this gradual closeness, Dylan felt it was time to open his heart. He invited Judith for a walk in the park where they both had childhood memories. Sitting on a bench watching the sunset, Dylan gathered the courage to speak. "Judith, I need to tell you something," he began, his heart racing. "When we met, I was a different person. I thought I knew everything about relationships, but actually I understood nothing. You taught me what is truly important. For the first time in my life, I am truly in love." Judith looked at him, her eyes shining with emotion. "Dylan, I've noticed your change. I've seen how you've made an effort to be a better person, not just for me, but for yourself. That touched me deeply. In that moment, under the golden light of the evening, they shared their first kiss. It was a gentle kiss, full of promises and a love that had grown slowly, based on friendship and respect. In the months and years that followed, Dylan and Judith built a solid and loving relationship. Dylan learned to treat Judith with the same respect and care that he had seen her father demonstrate. He discovered that true love wasn't in quick conquests or games of seduction, but in the daily building of a partnership based on trust and mutual care. Dylan's transformation did not go unnoticed by his friends and co-workers. Many noticed how he had become a kinder and more considerate person, not just with Judith, but with everyone around him. The bet that had started it all was now a distant memory, replaced by a story of true love and personal growth. Dylan and Judith became an example of how love can transform people. They demonstrated that strong and loving families not only create adults who know their own worth, but also have the power to inspire positive changes in those around them. Their story was a reminder that it is never too late to learn to truly love, and that sometimes the greatest challenge we can face is to become the best version of ourselves. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.